The earliest photographs appeared in the 1820s, but in terms of general collections, you're unlikely to come across photographs before the 1840s. I'm Colin Harding, I'm Curator of Photographic Technology at the National Media Museum in Bradford. The first commercial portrait studios opened in the early 1840s. Wealthy people could afford to have a photographic likeness called a Daguerreotype from the 1840s into the 1850s. And this is an example of some of the earliest portraits. The standard cost of a Daguerreotype would be around about £1 unless you have collections related to people who are relatively wealthy, that you are unlikely to come across them in general. But in the early 1850s, a totally different process called the Collodion process was developed. So you took a glass plate, you coated it on one side with collodion, then you sensitized it to silver nitrate, and then the emulsion stuck to the surface. You could expose it in the camera, and then you could develop out the negative. And then this glass negative could be used to make positive paper copies. And the glass negative or wet plate process really dominated most photography from the 1850s right up until the end of the 19th century. Undoubtedly, if you're looking at 19th century photographs, the vast majority of photographs taken were commercial portraiture. And of commercial portraits, there was one particular format called the carte de visite, the visiting card. And this is a format that was introduced by a French photographer, Daguerreotype, in the 1850s. The original idea came from the fact that if you were in genteel society and you called on someone but they were out, you would normally leave your visiting card, your carte de visite. And Daguerreotype thought, well, wouldn't it be quite a nice idea, instead of just leaving a card with your name and address, you could leave a card which also had your photograph. And in the early 1860s, there was a period called Mania in Britain. People went to studios to have these small portraits made, which were then pasted onto cards. People could put them into their albums, send them to their families and friends. Instead of using a glass negative to take one photograph, you would use special cameras with multiple lenses or with repeating backs, so you could take multiple photographs using the one negative. So in this case, 4 separate photographs on the one glass plate. You would then print these up, so by processing and printing one negative, you got not 1 but 4 portraits. You would then take these portraits, you would trim them and mount them onto pieces of cardboard, and you would then sell them as multiples. Cartes de visite were made in their tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions from the 1860s onwards, and most collections will have these, and indeed most people might have examples of these tucked away in old shoe boxes, family albums, or hidden on the top of the wardrobe.
What you really need to do when you're looking at photographs is concentrate on the details, not just in the dress but also in the background. My name's Christine Stevens, formerly of the National Museum of History in St Vagans, but now Newcastle University. The main thing about the skirt is its size. When you're in the early 1860s, you have a kind of bell skirt. It's quite large, but as you go through the 1860s, you get an increasing train developing. So what you've got here is a large skirt, and you can see you've got the train. So you've got a big skirt and you've got a train at the back, and that means that you're moving to the middle of the 1860s. It's not just a large skirt, you actually can differentiate from the beginning of the 1860s to the middle, if you can see the train, but you very often can. 1865, the invention of the sewing machine has contributed to that part of the fashion considerably. Everyone could then sew much more quickly and create more pleats, more ruffles, and then as you move into the 1870s, what you get is the front of the skirt is no longer a bell, it's straight. All of the fabric is actually gathered up behind, and eventually it turns into a bustle. So you've got crinoline cages with bustles actually attached, but they're much straighter, so you've got a straight line and a little bustle at the back, and then the cage just disappears and you've just got bum rolls basically on different types of bustle holding the skirt up at the back. What you see as you're going through the 1880s is a much more refinement of the silhouette. You've got very, very smooth silhouette over the hips, and more interest on the sleeves, and little pointed up sleeves come in around about 1890, and this develops into a massive leg of mutton sleeve by 1895. A fairly tight-fitting bodice, fairly tight-fitting shoulders, fairly slim silhouette. You know you're going to be in the regions of the late 1880s and very, very early 1890s. Men are always a problem. I mean, men are a serious problem when it comes to dating. Of course, the trouble with men is they wear their things out. You know, they wear the same suit for years and years and years. The main thing to look at is whether or not they're wearing a suit that matches. So a suit as we would understand it today. They didn't wear matching waistcoats at all, generally. But also they didn't wear trousers that matched the coat or jacket. And you've got a longer coat generally earlier in the century than later. After 1900, the influence of King Edward VII, he massively influenced men's fashion. The narrow trousers, the teddy boy look, which was revived in the 50s, did actually come from the Edwardian style of dress. And that continues really until you get into the 1920s after the war, and you start to get Oxford bags at trouser turn-ups and that kind of thing. What you need to do is look at the skirts, look at the hairstyles, look at the bodices. If it's a man, look at the type of moustache he has, look at his tie, look at the length of his jacket. You don't need to be an expert at all. You just need a general working knowledge of the changes in shape of dress that has happened throughout the 19th century.